Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Maxford Nelsen, here on behalf of the Freedom Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to individual liberty, free enterprise, and limited accountable government. House Bill 745 stands for the simple proposition that government should refrain from using taxpayer funds or public resources to subsidize ideological interest groups, including, most predominantly in this case, teachers' unions. The U.S. Supreme Court has recognized that public sector collective bargaining is inherently political, as it necessarily involves questions about the proper size, cost, and operations of government. Now, many Idaho school districts currently lack authority to determine how they will handle labor relations because Idaho law has required since 1977 that the roughly 83 school districts with unionized teachers determine compensation, benefits, and conditions of employment through collective bargaining. And our research has shown that teachers' unions have followed the advice of the National Education Association and taken advantage of the collective bargaining process to shift the costs for union operations and advocacy to Idaho taxpayers, giving unions disproportionate influence that families and students lack. House Bill 745 would restore balance and fairness by drawing a clear line between school activities and union activities. The bill would end the practice of school districts deducting union dues from teachers' paychecks, give public employees more control over their union membership and payments, but the bill would not prevent any teacher who wants to join a union from doing so. House Bill 745 would prevent teachers from being paid by school districts to engage in union advocacy at taxpayer expense, a practice which we estimate costs the state about $500,000 per year. It would also prevent school districts from using taxpayer funds to pay the cost of union dues for educators with tax dollars, practice that we estimate costs about $1.2 million per year. These are all balanced, common sense reforms that are broadly supported by Idaho voters. I think there's a lot of interesting technical questions about the legislation. I'm happy to answer those, but we would strongly support your support for this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure you'll have a question or two. Representative Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much for being here. In the Supreme Court case that you mentioned that said, I believe how you put it was that government unions were inherently political. Were they talking about all types of government unions?
Mr. Nelson?
In the context of the Janus versus AFSCME Supreme Court case, the plaintiff in that case was a state employee out of Illinois. But the court was basically saying the process of collective bargaining involves fundamentally free speech, political related questions about the size, cost, and scope of government.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow up. Thank you for that clarification. Then, so that would flow to all types of government unions, then firefighters and police as well as being inherently political.
Mr. Nelson?
Again, I don't think the court made any statement about the nature of unions as organizations. The court was saying that the process of collective bargaining in government is a process that affects fundamentally political questions about the size, cost, and scope of government. So that would include collective bargaining for police and fire. Now, I will note that the federal courts have also looked at a number of other state laws that have treated different groups of public employees differently for the purposes of labor relations. And generally, courts have held that it is perfectly permissible for a state to treat first responders differently than other types of public employees in light of the important life-saving and emergency response services that they provide and the importance of making sure that those services are provided without interruption. And I would just also note that Idaho law on this subject is already, shall we say, a patchwork. Firefighters and teachers have statutory collective bargaining rights, for example, but no other groups of public employees do. There's maybe an implied right for city employees to collectively bargain, but it's not specified in statute. So there is already quite a disparity in treatment in existing Idaho law in terms of how different public employee groups are treated for labor purposes.
Representative McCann?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your testimony. A couple of questions. I thought I understood you to say that the districts lacked authority to actually collective bargain. Okay, so maybe if you could clarify that statement?
Counselor?
Great question. And I should, not to, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I am not an attorney, just to disabuse anyone of that notion. Not that that means that I lack for words, but to Representative McCann's question, no, school districts do have collective bargaining authority. It's very clearly provided for in state statute. The point that I was trying to make was that school districts lack the ability to handle labor relations in the manner that they see fit. The state has already told school districts, you will engage in this collective bargaining process. It's not a decision that an individual school district gets to make on its own.
Follow up?
Yes, and actually a little bit different question. So you stated that you represent the Freedom Foundation. So if I were a teacher in K through 12 and I was advocating on behalf of a bill that the Freedom Foundation was pushing because I thought I was in agreement with you, and I wanted my payroll monies to go to your organization, would I be able to do that under this if I'm a union member? You're not part of the union, but you're a 501c3, and so help me understand how that would be okay for me to advocate with you, but not advocate a bill that maybe really represents me as a teacher.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCann, excellent question. We do not support the use of government facilities or resources for private benefit generally. I don't think a teacher should be allowed to contribute to my organization by a payroll deduction or take paid time off to engage in advocating for the issues that our organization stands for. I think the issue that maybe some members of the committee are struggling with here is we're talking about teachers' unions, and so I think there's a built-in assumption, well, why are you singling out or targeting teachers' unions? I think that misunderstands the issue. The reason we're talking about teachers' unions in public schools is because that's where these practices predominantly play out. And so the teachers union may object to being the subject of conversation, but in practice, they're the subject of conversation because that's where these kinds of things are happening. I can't go to a public school and get these kinds of benefits provided to my organization as Freedom Foundation, nor should I think we'd be able to.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Follow up.
one more follow-up.
Okay.
So when you say that the teachers union and all government unions that are statutorily set up, they have the right to collectively bargain. So in that right to collectively bargain, if they are collectively bargaining with a member of their district that is a member of the union, is maybe a state representative that represents all the teachers in her or his district, and the school district collectively bargains that they can have the time off, but that the union reimburses, because that's my understanding. I've talked with a lot of school districts about this bill, and that they reimburse the union reimburses the district. So help me understand that a little bit.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, Representative McCann, excellent question. So this legislation would only prohibit paid time off that is specifically provided by a school district to engage in union activities at taxpayer expense. The legislation specifically permits arrangements such as you've described in which the union reimburses the district for the cost of the time that educators take off to engage in union activities. And actually there's statutory support for that under existing law. There's a statute, I can cite it here if necessary, that contemplates this idea of a teacher going on leave of absence, if you will, and engaging, as a union president in a local district and fulfilling those duties, but continuing to be paid their teacher salary and the union reimbursing that cost to the district. That is perfectly permissible under this legislation, and I think an appropriate way to balance the representational duties that the union has towards its members with taxpayers' interests in ensuring that they're not footing the bill for that private organization's activities. Now, I will say we've done an exhaustive study. I've read through every school district teachers union contract in the state. We've put together, this is year too old now, but a comprehensive analysis of each school district teachers union contract. And we found a number of arrangements, I think about 50, in which the school district provides paid leave for union activities that is not reimbursed. And our best guess, it's difficult to put a dollar amount to that, of course, but our best guess is that the value of that unreimbursed time is about $500,000 per year.
Thank you.
Representative Buswinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a question.
Go ahead.
Sir, so it seems like maybe you probably go across different states. You look at these kinds of laws in other states. I'm just curious, like, do other states kind of have this where you describe like a patchwork? Do other states kind of similar kind of patchworks going on, or they kind of do it all the same? Just kind of curious what your experience is there.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Beiswinger, excellent question. Private sector labor relations are governed federally by the National Labor Relations Act, but when you're talking about non-federal, state, and local government employees, the 10th Amendment gives states the right to determine how they're going to handle labor relations for their own public sector workforces. And so what you see is a spectrum. You have states like South Carolina that prohibit all forms of public sector collective bargaining across the board for all public employees. On the other end of the spectrum, you'll have states like California, New York, Illinois, where collective bargaining is nearly universally extended to public employees. And then you have a variety of states in the middle that will say, such as Texas and Georgia and Wyoming, I think, that will say firefighters can have collective bargaining rights, but not other groups of employees. Idaho is somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, where the state has decided we will extend collective bargaining into school districts for teachers, we'll extend it to firefighters. Again, there's some interesting legal questions about the authority of city governments to engage in collective bargaining at a city-by-city level, but there is no statutory collective bargaining right for state employees or municipal employees and so on.
Thank you. That's all the questions I see, but don't go too far. We may have some more later.
Fair enough.
Thank you, sir.